I still remember the way the city smelled the night I found those shoes. It had rained all afternoon and the pavement steamed, the streetlights turning puddles into liquid gold. Emma was at her night class across town, and I had the apartment to myself for the first time in weeks. My laptop hummed in the living room because real work was a thing I did now. I'm a graphic designer, which means my days are full of other people's colors and blank spaces I get paid to fill. It's tidy work on the surface, creative enough to keep me sane and boring enough to keep me safe. Safe is the word I use a lot when I'm not alone. Safe from judgment. Safe from questions. Safe from the small, bright things I still don't know how to explain. People who only see me at the office know Alex the designer. Neat hair, plain shirts, the kind of shoes that blend in with tile floors. At home, I am a different collection of urges and memories stitched together. I've been careful, secretive, hopeful. None of those labels feel like truth, and yet all of them touch me. I've cross-dressed in private for as long as I can remember. At first it was curiosity, then it became ritual. On bad weeks it was comfort. On good nights it felt like reclaiming something that had been whispered away from me. It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't performance. It was the quietest kind of truth a person can hold, the one you fold into the dark and speak only to the mirror. Emma makes the secrecy harder and softer at the same time. She's laugh-out-loud practical. She keeps lists and schedules and has a way of fixing the coffee filter while answering 3 emails. She is also the woman I love, stubborn as a brass hinge, and the reason half the apartment looks like a Pinterest board for sensible people. She thinks she knows me. Up to a point she does. She knows my jokes, my obsessions with negative space, how I hum when I'm concentrating. She doesn't know how I spend the hours after midnight when the apartment settles and the city drops its guard. We've been together 3 years. We moved in together last winter, folding closets and defenses into one shared wardrobe. That's where the complications started, literally, in the closet where jeans and blouses and love notes collided. Her clothes are bright and lived in, and once, the sight of them made me ache. Not in a way I can explain with tidy sentences. Those blouses, with soft collars, suggested possibilities that shirts never did. Her perfume, the faint trail of it on a sleeve, felt like a map to a door I was tempted to open. I never meant to lie. I told myself I would tell her when it felt right, when the moon and courage lined up. But privacy is a stubborn thing when it becomes part of your identity. Telling Emma felt like taking a live wire out of the wall without looking. What if she laughed? What if she left? What if she loved me less? The risk shrank what I could imagine for our future into a neat, secret box. And so the secret stayed secret. That night I found the heels because of an accident or an absence, depending on how generous you want to be to coincidence. We store shoes in a narrow cabinet by the door, a sensible thing for people who come home late and hate clutter. I was looking for a pair of plain flats I could wear if I had to run to the shop. Instead, my fingers brushed something unexpected, smooth leather curved into a silhouette I never dared touch up close. They were Emma's. Black patent, the heel just high enough that my breath caught when I lifted them out of the box. I held them like contraband, like relics from a life I only half owned. There's a memory that comes back every time I see heels. I was maybe 13, and I watched a woman at a bus stop cross her legs. Her shoes were too loud for that slow morning, and she clicked when she walked. I felt something like recognition then, a pinprick of brightness that was mine the moment the woman's soul met the pavement. I tried to forget it because possession of strange desires is messy where I come from, but a seed was planted and it kept growing in the dark. Now the heels sat on my lap and read the room. The apartment hummed with the kind of quiet that holds a secret and waits for one of us to make the next move. My palms were clumsy. The leather felt cooler than I expected. Up close I noticed the tiny smudge near the toe where Emma had once caught herself on something, evidence of a life lived in those shoes. It felt intimate. It felt wrong to call it mine. I set them on the coffee table and laughed at myself, a sound too loud in the empty room. I told myself 100 practical reasons not to put them on. Emma would be home soon. I had a presentation tomorrow. What would coworkers think if they found me practicing a walk I'd never admit to? And yet my hands moved before my thoughts finished arguing. Maybe it was the rain tapping a staccato on the window. Maybe it was the tenderness of being alone in a space filled with memories that belonged to two people who had not yet shared everything. Or maybe it was simply that small, stubborn part of me, hungry for the sensation of being someone else for a few minutes, that demanded attention. I padded to the bedroom barefoot, the heels heavy with their own gravity, and shut the door. I needed the mirror. Mirrors are mirrors because they show us the edges we already know and sometimes the shapes we hope for. I put the shoes down, sat on the edge of the bed, and watched my reflection like someone peering into shallow water for a fish that might not exist. What happened next happened in the way private revolutions do, not as a sudden epiphany, but as a series of tiny, irreversible choices. I rolled up my trousers because my hands were trembling and ordinariness helped. I unbuttoned my shirt one careful notch at a time, the ritual of undressing thin grammar before the new sentence. I smoothed my palms over my calves and felt ridiculous and strangely regal all at once. The first time you do something you've imagined 1,000 times, everything is louder. Your breathing, the floorboard complaining under your weight, the tick of the clock that suddenly seems to count down instead of out. I slipped one foot gingerly into the heel. It sat like a secret nest, snug and unfamiliar. The heel's height rearranged my posture. I could feel muscles engaging in ways they'd never had to before. I laughed at the sensation because laughter is the closest thing I had to courage in that moment. I put on the other shoe and stood up. The room tilted. Not in a dizzy, cartoonish way, but as if the world's gravity had recommended a new center and I had to relearn how to balance. My calves tightened, my spine found a different line, and my reflection in the mirror, a man I knew the outline of, shifted into someone I recognized with a stop of the heart. Not different enough to be a costume. Not the person Emma saw when she kissed me goodnight. Something else entirely. Not a label, but a sudden and aching self that had been waiting politely in the dark for permission to step forward. I touched the arch of the shoe, the seam of leather. The sound of the city outside the window dimmed until all I could hear was the faint, theatrical click of my heels against the bedroom floor. There was terror beneath the thrill. It bloomed fast and sharp like a sting. What if Emma came home? What if she opened the door and found me like this, not in shame, but in the middle of a revelation? Would her eyes hold curiosity or hurt? There are questions that rearrange your life just by existing, and this was one. I had never been asked to choose between the person I loved and the person I was becoming. The shoes had made me a little braver and a lot more vulnerable. Standing there, I let the vulnerability web into me and felt, for the first time in a long time, a crack where something new might grow. It did not feel like betrayal. It felt like stumbling out of the dark and being surprised to find daylight. I didn't know then that one private half hour would set in motion the things that would test the edges of my relationship, the courage of my convictions, and how honest I could let myself be. I only knew the click of my heels and the shape of my breath, and the way the mirror held me like a secret friend. Emma was due back in an hour. The kettle was still on, forgotten. My phone sat face down on the table. There is a particular kind of silence that means permission, and a different kind that means warning. The silence in our apartment that night was both. I took another step toward the mirror, and in that frozen heartbeat between one foot and the next, between fear and exhilaration, I decided I would not hide the sensation from myself. Not yet. The rest of the night, everything that would bloom from that small audacity, was still waiting on the other side of the door. The mirror was merciless. It reflected every tiny tremor of my hand, every angle of my body that didn't quite belong. But instead of retreating, I leaned closer. I should have taken the shoes off right then, placed them back neatly in the cabinet, smoothed the bedspread, erased every trace of the impulse. But I didn't. My heart hadn't slowed since the moment I first stood in them. It pulsed, hot and insistent, filling the room with its own rhythm. I couldn't unhear the sound of my heels on the wooden floorboards, couldn't unfeel the delicious, alien shift in my posture. My calves strained, my hips swayed without permission. The more I moved, the less I recognized the man in the mirror. The less I wanted to. I crossed the room with careful, deliberate steps, then stopped at Emma's dresser. My hand hovered over the drawers like a thief considering his crime. My pulse pounded as I pulled one open. Perfume bottles glittered in neat rows, lipsticks lined up like tiny soldiers. Her makeup bag sat nestled in the corner, casual and unguarded. I knew I shouldn't. That this was the line I'd never crossed, not once. Shoes were one thing, but this was trespassing into something more intimate. Something riskier. And yet, my hand closed around the bag. The zipper rasped, far too loud in the hush of the apartment. I set the bag on the dresser, opened it, and stared at the powders and pencils as if they were artifacts from another world. My fingers trembled as I pulled out a lipstick, a soft rose shade Emma wore on casual days. The cap clicked off with a sound that felt like an accusation. I held it up to my lips, breathing carefully. My reflection looked both ridiculous and fragile, a grown man with shaking hands trying to borrow softness that didn't belong to him. But when I pressed the color across my mouth, clumsy and uneven, I felt something stir in my chest. It wasn't about beauty, not yet. It was about permission. About finally allowing myself to touch the edges of a dream I had starved for years. I leaned closer to the mirror. My lips glistened pink. The sight was wrong and right all at once, like a puzzle piece forced into place and somehow fitting anyway. I exhaled shakily, laughing at the smear that went too far over the corner. I wiped it with my thumb, then did it again, and again, until my mouth looked fuller, softer, different. A sound outside made me freeze. My heart slammed as I whipped toward the window. Just the rain easing, just a car pulling away from the curb. No keys at the door. No footsteps. Still, the scare was enough to jolt me with adrenaline. This was dangerous. One wrong second, one early return from Emma, and everything I'd hidden could collapse like a badly stacked deck of cards. But instead of stopping, I pushed further. I tugged Emma's closet door open. Dresses and blouses hung in neat color order, whispering promises with their fabrics and cuts. I ran my hand along them, feeling textures pass beneath my fingers: cotton, silk, chiffon. My throat tightened. Choosing one would mean going all in, crossing from fantasy into something terrifyingly real. My hand stopped on a dress I knew well. A navy-wrap dress Emma wore to dinners, soft and elegant with a neckline that always made her look luminous. I pulled it down, pressing it against me, watching in the mirror as it draped awkwardly over my shoulders. It was ridiculous, of course. It didn't fit. My chest too broad, my shoulders unforgiving. But the illusion was enough. I turned slightly, watching the way the fabric flowed, watching myself soften at the edges. My hands shook as I slipped out of my shirt and slid the dress on. It resisted at first, too snug, but then it settled against my body. The belt cinched awkwardly at my waist, but the effect was startling. The man in the mirror was vanishing, piece by piece. In his place stood someone unsteady, but undeniably different. A shadow of possibility. A reflection I had longed for, but never dared to fully meet. I took a step, then another. The click of my heels echoed against the new swish of fabric. Each sound layered onto the other until it felt like a rhythm, a heartbeat externalized. I moved to the middle of the room, spun clumsily, almost toppling, then laughed into the empty air. The laughter broke into silence again. What was I doing? I pressed my palms to the dresser, trying to steady myself. This wasn't a game. It wasn't just dress up. It was something deeper, something dangerous, something Emma could never unsee if she walked in right now. I thought of her face, the curve of her brow, the sharpness of her gaze when she caught lies before they were even spoken. She'd know. She'd know. And yet, I looked back at the mirror. The lipstick, the dress, the heels, together they were alchemy. I was no longer Alex the designer, no longer the safe man with tidy shirts. I was standing on a cliff edge, the wind tugging me forward into someone unnamed, someone I had only brushed with in dreams. I practiced walking. Small steps, hips loose, arms swaying just slightly. The first few tries were a disaster. I stumbled, wobbled, cursed under my breath. But slowly, painfully, my body began to find the balance. The sway. The rhythm. I crossed the bedroom, turned, and crossed again. Each step made the floorboards talk back to me in little clicks. Each step made my chest expand with something that felt alarmingly close to pride. And then I heard it. The keys. At the door. My blood iced over. I froze mid-step, heart stopping, body rigid. The jangle was unmistakable, the sound of Emma's keys as she fished them from her bag. My mind raced. She wasn't supposed to be home for another hour. Had her class been canceled? Had she decided to surprise me? The dress clung to my body. My heels were strapped on tight. Lipstick stained my mouth like a confession written in ink. The doorknob rattled. I spun, panic flooding every nerve. I grabbed at the dress belt, fumbling to undo it, but my hands were clumsy, useless. The knot refused to come loose. My reflection in the mirror was a stranger caught red-handed, eyes wide and guilty. Alex. Emma's voice called faintly through the door, muffled by wood but terrifyingly close. I clawed at the zipper, cursed, stumbled toward the closet, desperate. My heels betrayed me, clicking loud on the floor as I nearly tripped. The sound felt deafening, echoing in the silence. She'd hear it. She'd know. Alex? You home? Her keys slid into the lock. My lungs burned as I yanked the closet door open, half shoving myself inside, still tangled in her dress, lipstick smeared. My pulse was a drumbeat. This was it. The secret was seconds from unraveling. The door creaked open, and I realized, standing in the dark of her closet with the smell of her perfume wrapping around me, that I had never been more alive or more terrified. The closet was too small to contain my panic. My shoulders pressed against hangers, fabric brushing my face like 1,000 whispers of accusation. My breath came shallow, every inhale laced with the scent of Emma's perfume, the faint trace of her lavender detergent, the intimate markers of her life that I had stolen for myself. The front door clicked open. Alex. Her voice filled the apartment, casual, unsuspecting. Keys clinked against the counter. The sound of her shoes being towed off echoed like a gavel. I clamped a hand over my mouth, desperate to quiet the rasp of my breath. My heels were still strapped on, biting into my feet. My calves trembled from standing so tense, and the dress clung to me, betraying me with every brush of fabric. I closed my eyes, praying. Maybe she'd go straight to the kitchen. Maybe she'd grab something and leave again. Maybe. The floorboards creaked. She was coming down the hall. Alex. Her tone had shifted, curious now. Suspicious. I shrank deeper into the closet, pulling a coat in front of me, as if a single sleeve could erase me. My reflection in the mirrored sliding door betrayed me, though, lipstick smudged, dress crooked, heels gleaming like proof. Her hand rattled the bedroom door handle. Panic surged. I kicked at the heel strap, desperate to tear them off, but the buckle caught. My fingers fumbled, clumsy with sweat. The heel slipped half off my foot and dangled uselessly. The door swung open. I froze. Silence. Then, Emma's sharp inhale. I didn't move. Couldn't. The mirror gave me away. She could see me, half hidden in the closet, tangled in her dress, lipstick staining my mouth like a brand. The pause stretched, unbearable. I wanted to die, to disappear, to dissolve into the fibers of her clothes and never be seen again. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was quiet, but edged with something I couldn't name. What are you doing? I staggered forward, words tumbling out in fragments. It's not what it looks like. Even as I said it, I knew the absurdity. It was exactly what it looked like. Her eyes swept me head to toe, lingering on the shoes, the dress, the trembling smear of color on my lips. Her expression was unreadable, a mixture of shock, confusion, maybe even hurt. Alex, she said slowly, carefully, as though tasting the syllables of my name for the first time. Why are you wearing my clothes? The room spun. My throat locked. Every possible answer jammed against the next. Shame boiled hot under my skin. I wanted to tear the dress off, scrub the lipstick away, hurl the shoes into the night. I wanted to undo every second of the last hour. But another voice, quieter, pulsed inside me. The heels had changed something. The moment I stood in them, I had glimpsed myself, someone truer, someone freer. That self wasn't willing to go back into hiding, not so easily. My voice cracked. I just wanted to try. The silence that followed was louder than a shout. Emma blinked, her brow furrowing, her lips parting as if to speak, then closing again. You wanted to try? She repeated. Her voice wasn't cruel. It was bewildered, raw. Yes. My throat tightened. I don't know how to explain. I've been hiding this part of me for years. And tonight, I couldn't stop myself. Her eyes flicked again to the heels, the dress. Her arms crossed, defensive. So, you sneak around when I'm not home? You put on my clothes in secret. Her words were daggers, but not because they were sharp, because they were true. I didn't want to lie, I whispered. But I was terrified. What if you hated me for it? What if you left? Her face softened, but only slightly. Alex. She sat on the edge of the bed, her gaze heavy on me. For the first time, I didn't see Emma the girlfriend, Emma the practical. I saw someone caught in her own storm, trying to reconcile the man she thought she knew with the stranger standing in heels before her. The silence stretched. My legs trembled. I nearly fell, catching myself on the dresser. The mirror wavered, showing me split in two, Alex the boyfriend and Alex the secret. Then, something happened that I hadn't anticipated. Emma stood, walked toward me, and, without a word, reached for my face. I flinched, expecting anger. But instead, her thumb brushed at the corner of my smeared lipstick, wiping softly. She held it up, pink smudge on her skin. Her eyes searched mine. You really wanted this? Tears stung my eyes. I nodded. The moment broke like glass. Her hand fell away, and the air grew thick again. Alex, she whispered, I don't know if I can handle this. The words struck harder than any slap. I swayed on the heels, knees weak. She turned away, pacing. This isn't just curiosity, is it? I swallowed hard. No. It's part of me. Something I can't ignore anymore. Her laugh was brittle, painful. And you chose tonight? To risk everything. I didn't choose, I said, voice raw. The heels, they changed me. The moment I put them on, I couldn't go back. I didn't expect you to come home. Her pacing stopped. She looked at me, really looked, and for the first time I couldn't read her at all. The clock ticked. Rain tapped the window. My entire world balanced on the tilt of her next word. She finally spoke. Quietly. Flatly. You need to take them off. The command sliced through me. My stomach twisted. The shoes had become more than leather and heel. They were the symbol of everything I had just dared to admit. To remove them felt like erasing myself. But Emma's eyes were sharp now, unyielding. Slowly, trembling, I bent down. My fingers fumbled with the strap. One heel came loose. I set it on the floor. The room seemed to sigh. The second heel clung tighter, as though resisting. I unbuckled it with shaking hands and placed it beside the first. Standing barefoot, stripped, I felt smaller. Diminished. Emma looked at the shoes, then at me. Her eyes glistened. I don't know who you are right now, she whispered. Her words gutted me. I wanted to scream, to explain, to beg her to see the truth I had seen in the mirror. But my voice failed. All I could do was stand in the hollow, where the heels had left me. Then, the twist I hadn't expected. Emma reached down and picked up one of the shoes. She turned it in her hands, studying the curve of the leather, the glossy shine. She held it like a question. Her eyes flicked back to mine. Do you want this life more than you want me? The question detonated in my chest. I opened my mouth, closed it. No answer was safe. No answer was simple. The truth was tangled. I wanted both. I wanted her love and my heels, her touch and my freedom. But the air between us demanded a choice. I didn't speak. Emma placed the shoe back on the floor with deliberate care. She walked to the door, hand on the knob. She turned back once, her face unreadable. "We'll talk tomorrow," she said. Her voice cracked, but her eyes stayed hard. Then she left. The door clicked shut. I collapsed onto the bed, the dress crumpling around me. The heels sat on the floor like abandoned relics, gleaming in the half-light. The mirror across the room reflected me, lipstick fading, dress slipping from one shoulder, bare feet pressed into the carpet. Two selves. One body. One secret, now unleashed. And for the first time, I realized there might not be a way to keep both worlds intact. I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. The boy I knew, awkward, ordinary, forgettable, was gone. In his place stood someone ethereal, with shimmering eyes, a delicate blush, and lips that seemed made for secrets. I touched my reflection, half expecting it to shatter, but the truth was undeniable. I looked like a girl. Not just passably so, convincingly beautifully. Delilah leaned against the vanity, smirking. "See? I told you. You were meant for this." Her words both thrilled and terrified me. What if people believed it too? What if my friends saw me like this? What would they say? Worse, what if they liked it? My mind spun with questions, but a strange exhilaration pulsed in my veins. The sound of voices drifted from outside the room. Laughter. Music. A gathering I hadn't expected. Delilah's grin widened as she picked up a dress from her bed. Perfect timing. "You're not just going to sit in here and stare at yourself. Tonight, you're going out. As her." My stomach dropped. "No. Delilah, I can't." She cut me off, holding the dress up against my body. The silky fabric gleamed under the light. "You've already taken the first step. Don't waste it. Trust me. Once you step out that door, you'll see the world differently. And the world will see you differently too." I wanted to run, to peel off the layers of mascara and lipstick and return to the safety of my old self. But part of me, a dangerous, whispering part, ached to see how far this illusion could go. With trembling hands, I took the dress. The dress clung to me like it had always belonged. Soft fabric hugged my body, transforming every angle into something softer, cuvia. My legs, smooth under sheer tights, trembled as I slipped on the heels Delilah handed me. Each step was a lesson in balance, each breath a reminder that I wasn't supposed to be doing this. Yet when Delilah zipped me up and spun me toward the mirror, I couldn't deny it. I looked right. Too right. "Ready?" she whispered, her hand firm on my shoulder. "No," I muttered. But she was already pulling me toward the door. The noise hit first, music, chatter, the clink of glasses. My heart slammed against my ribs. People would see me. They'd know. But as we entered the living room, the opposite happened. Heads turned. Smiles spread. A hush fell, then a burst of compliments. "Wow, she's gorgeous. Who is that? I've never seen her before." No one recognized me. Not a single glance suggested suspicion. They didn't see him. They saw her. Delilah squeezed my hand, her eyes sparkling with victory. "Told you," she murmured. But then, across the room, I caught sight of someone who did know me. Someone who could shatter this fragile illusion in seconds. His eyes locked with mine, and I froze. The music kept playing, but in that moment, the world narrowed to just the two of us. Would he expose me or play along?